Well, welcome everybody. Clerk, will you call the roll?
Corliss,
Here.
Halliburton,
Here.
Rouse,
Here.
Nash,
Here.
Stead,
Here.
Willetts,
Here.
all present.
Well, thank you. We've got one item on our work session today. Welcome, Sean Wilson, for your first 90-day report.
Mayor, council members, there we are.
There you go.
And thank you. Good to see everybody. Sorry for delaying. I was kind of out with a cold last week, so I had to push it. First 3 months PDS update. I just have a kind of a short presentation, probably 10 minutes, and then wanted to leave room for feedback or any conversation council has. And I reflected on this a little bit over the weekend, and I call it the 3 months and 10 years because my work anniversary for 10 years is on Thursday. Thank you. And it really made me think about like my experiences at the city, how the time has just flown by. And it's kind of a unique job over the 10 years. I've never had a point where I'm like trying to figure out, oh, do I want to go to work today? Every day I want to go to work. I mean, we have a great place. The other thing that has been an experience for me is everywhere I go, I get to see where I've touched the city in some way. Like, hey, I've worked on that building. That's the depot. I know where the basement is in this. And so having that kind of gives me this perspective of what else can I do in planning and development. And then I had a couple interesting highlights. These are just kind of interesting, funny things. Wastewater on the plaza. So about 7 or 8 years ago, Steve Burgos and I, this is before he was the director, I think, we were sitting on the plaza, the old plaza. And we were looking at the utility, the water renewal utility, and we're like, we really need a long-term plan for this. Like, this is a big investment. We have assets that are aging. We have growth in our community. That we have regulatory constraints, and then we launched the strategic plan for the utility pretty much the day after that. Library planning meets COVID. This is another like a 2019, 2020. Me and Christine Miller, she was the interim at the time. We were like, we really need a strategic plan for the library, and then COVID hit. And it was like, okay, I guess we're waiting a couple of years. The other thing and the last thing is as we look at sort of as in my past 10 years, as I looked at everything, there's historic growth patterns around the city. And one of those is like Boise Fire Department. If you look at the age of the facilities, it's always late 70s because there was a growth then. And now we're in a pattern today where we have that same thing. There's a lot of growth that's happening. And what's the best thing we can do to, leave the next generation the best we can? The one common theme around the city that I've noticed, and I've been fortunate enough to work with every department, is our city teammates are irreplaceable. It doesn't matter what department, everybody really wants to do the best they can for the city. The second learning thing, another common theme, is if we authentically listen to the community, we usually get good results. Like what's important to the community. And in Boise, our community is incredible and super engaged. And so these are kind of things that I'm carrying with me into planning. So 3 months in, I say it was a whirlwind. So I chose to take it. I'm a retired runner, and I chose to take it like a 5K. I'm going full pace on this because I really want to know the business. I want to know what's going on in PDS. What are the things we need to get after for the future? So it has been a bit of a whirlwind, a very enjoyable one, but it's time to switch the pace a little bit to more of a half marathon, maybe, or a marathon pace. And the PDS team, consistent with the common themes across the city, they're incredible. Like every division, everybody on the team has a common goal of like, how can we help every customer that walks in the door? How can we help the community the best we can? I've also noticed that we have a very engaged development community. They like to call me a lot, and I enjoy that because I do want to hear from them and where we're headed. And in most cases, they want to make Boise a better place. So it's been really rewarding to see the engaged development community. For the future, which is more important to me, what I want to get after, there's a few things I want to tackle, so I'm going to point those out. Zoning code update and report back. I know as a department, we said, hey, we're going to report back, get the data. And for me, data baselining and data-driven path forward is very important. We have to know where we're going, what's working, what's not working. And then long-term planning and some 2024 thoughts, I call them, that I had. So late July and August, as all the smoke rolled into the valley, and it was hot and miserable and you couldn't go outside or do anything, it's really got me thinking about how important city planning is. Like, how do we reduce trips and commutes, and how do we do these things to protect the valley and our air quality in the valley? The other recent event that came up was the fire in the foothills. When I saw that, I'm just like, yep, we need to set the edge in the city. Where's our boundary, the urban interface boundary? So some of the thoughts I had and where direction I'm looking to go, and I'll be back in front of council to talk more in more detail, but where's the edge of our city? Like defining next year, we have to update the area of impact, and where's that edge? Where are our specific growth and investment areas? So if we're looking for areas to drive like transportation-oriented development or areas to reduce commute trips, like where are they and what does that look like? Both from reducing resource demands and really lowering long-term costs, lowering travel times for our community, and definitely supporting our climate goals. Third bullet is kind of an interesting one. I'm still crafting this one, but how do we keep Boise, Boise? How do we stay authentic to what Boise is, and set planning goals around that? And then the last bullet really is like focusing areas for public investment. How do we inform future investments that we have, whether it's public services? How do we inform school districts? How do we inform all our utility providers? Where is public investment happening? Another thing that's really important to me to work on is opportunities with housing support. Our housing team has been very successful. They have scrambled to get grants and funding and making progress towards the goals. And what do those next steps look like for housing? And how's the nexus with the zoning code and long-term planning? How does that influence housing diversity and supply? So there's definitely the connection there. And just, I wanted to highlight one thing, recent requests. We've submitted, I think, 25 million recent grant applications. So very impressive with our housing team. Lastly, one thing that's really important to me, and this is maybe my engineering background, is running the business, like setting up the business so it's continuous improvement. So our building applications, permits, how are they running through? Is there a way we can make them faster? Our building department, they do a fantastic job. Jason is a rock star there. But there's always improvement, continuous improvement. Updating systems and processes. We have some things, software that needs to be updated. Can we actually create more processes that are faster workflows for folks when they come in, when the community visits PDS? And then lastly, growing our teammates. We have a fantastic team of folks in PDS. And I think we owe it to them to have opportunities to grow. How do we train, offer training opportunities? How do we look for promotion opportunities, but continuously trying to grow our teammates? And with that, I will stand for any questions. I know we have 30 minutes in the agenda, but
Thanks, Sean.
sure.
Madam Mayor.
Sure.
Sean, can you go back a couple slides? There's the spot where you're talking about upcoming in the zoning code. Yep. So just maybe a couple questions there. Maybe you can give us a little more insight. I believe that you're coming back to us in December to tell us a little bit about what we've learned over the last year with the modern zoning code. Am I getting that right?
Mayor, council member, the exact timing is not set yet, but generally around that time. I am thinking January might be more appropriate, kind of kick the year off. Here's what we heard, and here's the next steps for long-term. But I'm trying to time it with some of the other conversations that need to take place with long-term planning.
Great, sounds good. It'll be nice, I think, for council to know that, just because I think that in our heads, we're thinking December. So if it's not going to be in December, preparing ourselves for when that's going to be, so that we have the ability to then communicate that to other folks as well. Along those lines, I think one of the things that's particularly important to me during that meeting is to understand, are the types of projects that we're wanting to see get through, not only getting through, but are they getting through faster, easier, cheaper than what they were before? Or if we're still within just the first year, and I know that you can only learn so much in a year, are we still having trouble getting the types of applications that we want to see? And are those types of applications still having a hard time getting through? So as we start to build out that a little bit more, I think that that will be something that will be extremely valuable, I think, for this council to know is did this thing that we were passed, is it driving those types of results and making it easier for the developers that are going to be assisting us, with those types of things?
Yep, Mayor, Councilmember, it's definitely yes. And we're looking at the data very closely to make sure, I call them our data ninjas, but looking at it close to make sure there's actually variable connections, because there's so many variables involved in that. So we'll come with a set of data that is statistically the best we think it could be. And then maybe some, hey, we think this is happening, but we're not quite sure. So, but for sure, the full gamut of any data we have will be presented.
Great. And Madam Mayor, if I could just follow up one more thing on the this update that we'll be getting. Will this be mostly an update and input that we're getting internally from staff's point of view? Are we doing anything to take in some outside input from either developers or community members who now have seen some of these things come forward, and having that help sort of inform that conversation that we'll have with council as well?
Yeah, Mayor, council member, it's both. So it'll be the data we have, what staff is seeing, and then we're doing developer interviews.
Great, sounds
So
good.
try and get as much as we can.
Yep, I think we're all looking forward to that one. And congratulations for 90 days. Congratulations for 10 years. Both are big deals. And like you said earlier, I know that you can see your thumbprint on a lot of stuff. I can see your thumbprint on a lot of stuff as well. And so I really appreciate all that hard work over the years.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor. Sean, when could we expect, I think last month we gave direction to staff to come back with airport area of impact. When could we expect that back?
Mayor, council member, we met with my team, the planning team met with airport last week to kind of figure out what that looks like. We set up a reoccurring, so we're going to drive this until we figure it out. There's a nexus with the airport starting the master planning.
Yeah.
So there will be growth around the airport, projected growth around the airport. So there's a little bit of, yes, we're going to come back, and it could take a little time to fully flush out area of impact for the airport.
I'll jump in here. There's a couple different things at play, and I've directed Rebecca to work on all of them with the team. It's, yes, council wants to see an airport zone, but that can be impacted by and could also impact the development plan for aeronautical property as well as non-aeronautical property, the strategic plan and the master plan, all of which Rebecca needs to get working on. So she'll return to present to council to start that conversation, but there are a couple different things that need to be started at once so that we aren't inadvertently preventing other things. So the zone is a piece of larger conversation. It's not going to be super drawn out, but it's not going to be immediate that you see a proposed zone area.
Madam Mayor.
I think there's a follow-up here and then.
Yeah, Sean, related to that, the decision that was associated with the area of impact that we took up in September, there's been a couple of applications that we've had where staff has recommended denial. Council either wanted to take another look at it or went a different direction. And we didn't really like the application as is. And we felt like had the application been run to ground by staff, after they realized they were probably headed toward a denial, that the projects, if approved, could have been better with that staff input. So are these things you're thinking about? Have you had conversations with the mayor's office about how to best address this, about applications that may be recommended denial? However, if they were to go forward, how you would better address them with your planning staff to make sure that we put our best foot forward if they do go through.
Mayor, council member, I have thought of this just based on a couple of examples. I think it will take a little work. It's not, I'm trying to think how to say this. We have a standard process we follow, and it could be that we maybe expand the process a little bit to provide more information if council wants to take a different approach from the recommended staff approach. So I have thought about it, but I don't have a good answer for you right now, Colin.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, this might be a question for you specifically. In talking about the airport report that's forthcoming. Yes, to you, Mayor, to you.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Sorry, I was writing.
Would part of that be also a noise study? Is that part? that's
I'm
gonna be
not sure, and
included? Okay.
I'd defer to Rebecca on that.
Okay. And I do have a couple questions for Sean. Thank you, Sean, for the report being 90 days. As I look at being in office here, 10 months, it seems overwhelming and it's gone so fast. I can only imagine with 90 days and coming to report. A couple of quick questions is, as we get requests from the community to provide feedback on the modern zoning code, what is the best method for people to provide input and feedback?
Mayor, council member, I've been actually thinking about that. I've gotten similar questions from developers from other parts of the community. So I'm looking at a strategy just to have a centralized, like, go to this spot. And I think we have a dedicated spot, but I haven't solved that, but it's on my list.
Okay. In the meantime, if they emailed the zoning at City of Boise, would that be a good way to provide that input?
Yes.
Okay, great. And thank you also for the outreach. The other question I had was whether or not we were going to reach out to developers who have had applications with the new zoning code, and it sounds like that's already in the works. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, hi, Sean. Thanks so much for meeting with us today, and congrats on the 90 days. I know it's not easy to step into a role like that, even if you have 10 years of other city experience. A couple of things that have been on my mind that I'm curious. I know we've had some conversations about this, but curious if this is on the radar. If this is on the radar, I guess, over the next year or maybe further out. But the reviewing updates to the historical or design review sections of our code, and then also the comprehensive plan. I know there's been kind of some chatter about maybe revisiting some updates there, and curious where that stands with you.
Mayor, council member, on the historical preservation piece, we did get a grant from the state of Idaho to do an initial study. That study will inform what the next steps are, whether there's an update with the guidelines or just what direction do we take. And I believe my team has launched a request for qualifications to hire someone for that under the grant. So that is moving forward. And comp plan, TBD. That's a really tough question to answer without a lot more information as far as creating a citywide plan. And yeah.
And I'll jump in here too, because the comp plan, it's been a while. It's a giant project. We just finished the zoning code. And on this long-term planning and the future is a conversation, because due next year is the year of impact. And that is something that will take staff time, but also council time in thinking about from a policy perspective where we ought to head. And then I would propose that after that, the comp plan might be up next. Once we know where that edge of the city is, we shouldn't be doing comp plan before that.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if there isn't anything else, I just have one additional thing that I think would maybe be helpful for council. And this is sort of, I think, in conjunction with what Council President Nask was asking to make some of those council meetings just a little bit easier. And that's that sometimes when staff is coming our way, they'll make recommendations and they'll cite, that it's supported by city code or supported by the comprehensive plan. And if I'm fast enough, I can sometimes pull it up online, dig it out, find the spot that they're referencing to. I do find it important that when we make decisions that we do, base them off of code, the comprehensive plan, and sometimes the gray area that's maybe there in the middle. But having those specific citations, if they're able to, whether that's in a council memo or in the meeting itself, I think would give them just a little bit of a more familiarity with being able to look stuff like that up a little bit more quickly, but also council's ability to reference those specific points. So I know that that's something that would be helpful for me during those decisions when we hear a reference to a comprehensive plan or a city code to see if we can cite those things, and that way we can jump in there and take a look at them as well if we're not fast enough.
Mayor, Councilmember, thanks.
Thank you.
We will look into that.
Madam Mayor, just one last thing, if we could. Sean, you touched on this when talking about the data and feedback that you're gathering, but I just want to make it clear. I think one thing, and we knew this beforehand, that is difficult for council to evaluate the effectiveness of the modern zoning code is that we designed it so that we would have fewer applications before city council. So I want to know, is staff seeing applications or feeling or hearing anecdotally that there's types of projects that we might have liked to see come through, but something we've done in the modern zoning code is preventing that? So I don't have any specific examples. Nothing's been shared with me outside of a couple minor issues I don't need to raise today. But are there things staff are seeing that they're denying, that they're surprised by, or that just aren't getting further along that they thought would have otherwise come further along with the modern zoning code? So those are the types of things that I would be interested in a report back. If there's things we could have done a little bit better, or is there some weird thing that had an unintended consequence that we didn't quite consider?
Yeah, Mayor, Councilmember, yeah, that'll be part of updating the code. Yeah.
Madam Mayor. Sean, congratulations, 90 days. I always say that, sometimes service like this feels like dog years because you've served the city well. So thank you so much. When we get the analytics from your review of the modern zoning code, what would be really helpful is to get that ahead of time. Often we get information here in work session, but if we could have that as part of our packet, that would help us to be more prepared. We went through a lot of hearings, and I know that it would just be a better use of our time if we had the ability to do some homework before you came in. Thank you.
Yeah, Councilmember, that's a great idea.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yep.
And we'll take a break till 6 o'clock.